Recap time. It's another year for Queer View Mirror, so that means another 9, 10 episodes. So episode 1 of season 2 started off with Turf Talks 1 and Turf Talks 2. What stood out in that interview, Scott, for you?
Oh, those interviews? Well, just, how wonderfully eloquent and intelligent Nicola and Aaron were.
Oh, absolutely.
I really felt like I learned quite a bit speaking with them.
Definitely. And the turf issue has been so, I don't know, blown out of proportion with all the celebrities piling on it and this side and that side. But I think it's died down. What do you think?
Well, I think the fight still needs to happen. Um, and I think it's really only dialed back for us because we shut all the commenting off on our posts.
Witnessed various types of discrimination based on the fact that I'm a woman. So that's why I say I'm fighting the same fight. So I have no male privilege in my current existence, and didn't have male privilege in my previous existence because I didn't see myself ever as a man. And when you struggle with that, that takes away a lot of your energy, and we both know what suffering with gender dysphoria is like. That ain't no privilege at all.
Oh, yeah.
We struggle and to carve out an existence for ourselves. So that doesn't hold water either. It's just, are they concerned about or just being afraid of what they deem to be the unknown, and they base a lot of their assumptions on really bad science, if science at all. So it's hard. How do you have a discussion with someone who completely disavows the concept of born gender? I mean, what do you do with that, right? If they won't listen to science-based facts.
And I think part of the problem is that they're playing to people's emotions. They're not providing factual information. They're 100%. Providing information that is riling people up, and they're trying to reach so that term I used before, the movable middle, is one that I hate using in this situation because it's sort of a political term where you have two valid issues and then you have people in the middle that can be swayed either way. We don't have two valid issues here. We have one side that is just seeking equal rights and protections, and then we have one side that's saying we hate trans people and we want to strip them of their rights and protections. And so it's difficult to say there's a middle ground there, but at the same time, there's a group of people that are ignorant to this entire conversation, and they can very easily be swayed based on emotional manipulation. And I think that's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I've seen it on the web, so it must be true. There are there are trans women that are accosting all sorts of women in washrooms. It must be true. It's like
it was on Facebook.
No. And there's cis people that are doing that all over the world. So I mean, if it's happening at a higher percentage, that's a conversation. But if it's just happening, there's guaranteed to be bad apples within any group of people anywhere in the world. So you can't use that as justification for saying, these people don't deserve rights. It's like saying, a cis woman once raped another woman, and therefore no cis women should be allowed in women's prisons. Like, that's the same type of argument that they're using against trans people.
Exactly. And it gets that vulnerable marginal right, moving towards the more fervent right, who was just foaming the water with fake facts, with fake news, right?
Yeah.
And it's so easy for that news to get out there with social media these days too. You don't have fact checkers in the media that are making sure that the stories that are coming out are legitimate. You just have anyone can just post on social media, and if they are able to rile up people's emotions, then they get attention.
And people,
well, if it's still a Netflix special, that's already there. So
you can only go so far, and then it's like, you know what, I can't move you, and this is the way it is. So it's like you cut bait. My time is worth something, and I have so much energy, and I put energy into positivity. I will work as hard with an individual as they want to work and as they want to commit. but I'm not gonna drag someone if they're kicking and screaming for a long period of time. It's like, okay, you know
Yeah.
what? And
Sounds
that's
so close to
unfortunate,
home,
you know.
Scott.
And the frustrating thing for me is that there's a lot of people that are part of the turf community, and I look at them as, okay, so but what have you done to talk about feminism? What have you done to move the needle? You're you know, living on the backs of those that came before you. You know, much like, you know, I self-admit I'm, you know, benefiting on the back of the trans women that came before me in the tough times of the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and I bow down to them. They've made it possible for me to be where I am today. But some of us in the trans community have done more for feminism than a lot of the people in the turfs that are, you know, against us. You know, for what reason? It's not a net zero sum game. You don't, if you give me some support and some rights, it's not like you lose any. You know, we get a bigger group together.
I've had a J.K. Rowling fan stalk me and show up at my home, post my address on social media with my phone number and email and all of that. And at the peak of when J.K. Rowling threatened to sue me, I was getting 10 hate messages a second. I had to do some math to figure it out, but you know, it's a ridiculous amount. And that was sort of the point when I realized that it doesn't make sense to try to respond to all of it. I have to be selective in what I respond to. So if someone raises a point that I think might resonate with that quote unquote movable middle, then I would address that point and make sure that my following and, you know, as many people as I can reach understand why whatever point is being made is not valid, and I counter it with scientific fact. And when people are just raising points because they're trying to rile me up, or you know, they've already been disproven many times and they're not getting the attention of the general public, I just don't see the need to respond to that, because my time is too valuable to waste. You can pull all of that apart and still you'll get the other side saying, no, that's not valid. You say, well, you know, here's my breakdown, here's what the author says, but they're so determined to believe what they want to believe that they're not willing to listen. And that's another instance where I just think you have to sort of move on to someone who is willing to listen, because you can only do so much to try to prove your point, and then it's up to the public to make that one. And we're getting rights, like, you know, around the world we're seeing that trans people are getting rights, and the people who see equality as oppression are pushing back against that. Exactly. And say, oh, hold on a second, we don't want you to have rights. We want to stop this from happening. And so how are we going to do that? We're going to become extremely vocal. So they're a very small minority, but they're a very vocal minority. And they're spreading their messages online, and those online platforms are not doing a particularly good job at shutting it down. So that's, I think, why we're seeing so much of that. And then you add celebrities like J.K. Rowling and Dave Chappelle, and I'm not going to give too many other people airtime, but you know, I think they add to that conversation.
Yeah, they're quite happy when we're oppressed, and then suddenly they feel threatened when we're getting rights, thinking that they're going to lose theirs.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't hold water.
Yeah, I think you really hit on that, Aaron. You know, the more rights other groups get, doesn't mean less rights for everybody else. It's, you know, to quote you, not a, what is it, net zero game?
Yeah, like, net zero sum game. Yeah.
There we go. Net zero sum game. Like, it's not like, you can't.
No, it's not. It's not about the pie. Who gets the bigger slice of the pie? It's about equality.
Yeah. Let's just get a bigger pie.
I just hope that the solution is, you know, is not to keep fighting, and it's that we're going to see a greater level of societal acceptance.
Well, to add to Turf Talks 1 and 2, we sort of like reinforced with a very strong ally in the person of Carrie Isham, who did Power Up Education, which helps parents and teens and all individuals deal with this issue of gender dysphoria and acceptance and the stigma that goes with it and all that stuff. It was a very enlightening and educational interview with Carrie Isham.
Absolutely. And Power Up Education is just that. They educate people. And not just about that, but sexual education as well.
So why don't we just dive right in, and why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, sure. Well, I've been an educator for 25 years, and I started off my teaching career in District 69, Parksville, Qualicum. And I spent 13 years there teaching grades 6, 7, and 8. And in 2009, I decided that I wanted to leave a full-time continuing job with 106 days and my pension, and kind of venture out into the entrepreneur world. And it's worked out really well for me.
Oh,
Okay, now I'm curious about, from your professional point of view, what would you say to people who, like you already mentioned, only view gender as boy and girl or male or female? What do we have to present, like solidly, scientifically, or medically, that their notion is wrong?
Well, I like to try to support people and not say that they're right or wrong, but I encourage them to look at gender and sexual orientation as a spectrum. And I often use an abacus, which is a simple tool for people to understand that one binary might be like the person identifies as, male or female, but then you have a spectrum of people that would be identifying differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, all we have to really do is look around the world. And I think it's super damaging for people to say there's only two genders, because we know that if we ask people what gender identity they most identify with, is lots of kids are saying non-binary. Some kids will say that I'm gender fluid or transgender. And I guess, for me, it's not a question of like, do they exist? It's like, well, just look around, because they're everywhere and they've been there forever. It's just people are now feeling safer to come forward and express their gender identity, to express, how they want to be with clothing, with makeup, with hairstyles, with whatever. And I think, I'm hoping by the time I leave the planet that people won't have to share their gender or sexual orientation, that people are just going to be able to accept people for who they are. High school kids usually tell their peers first. And some of my students actually transitioned at school, changed to who their parents thought they were gender wise when they get home. Like it is a heavy responsibility for them to kind of mask themselves. But the first step is basically a social transition. Does the child want a different haircut? Do they want to get their ears pierced? Do they want to wear certain clothes? How do they want to present? And this can be a really gradual change, or some of my clients, it's like an overnight. And I don't mean an overnight that they just thought about it one night, but they've been thinking about it, and thinking about it. And then they're like, today is the day I'm doing this. And sometimes the parents are really surprised because they say they didn't see it coming. And other parents are like, oh, this totally makes sense now, because I get where my child's at. So there's a lot of rumors and misinformation about, changing genitalia and, going on hormones and things like that. And so I go through the process with parents, which is, your first sort of person you would contact is your family doctor, if you have one. And then from your family doctor, you may be referred to, a psychologist or a counselor, someone that can affirm that you indeed have gender dysphoria. Then from there, you would be seeing an endocrinologist. And if you are past Tanner 1, which is a scale that is for puberty, you would be given puberty blockers like Lupron. And basically it buys the child time. So they don't go through puberty. So let's just say someone's 11 and they're like, I cannot go through puberty as a girl. I don't want to get my my period. I don't want to have breast development because I don't want to have breasts because I'm a boy. So they would give them something like Lupron, and Lupron is completely reversible. And this is one of the things that people who are sort of, transphobic or anti-trans will say, you're mutilating the body. If somebody goes on puberty blockers and they're taken off, they will go through puberty as the sex that they were assigned at birth, right? Then a child who's like, you know what, actually, I don't think I'm a boy. I'm going to stay as a girl. No harm, right? Then at about 15 or 16, depends, like when people come forward, they're given cross hormones. So testosterone if it's a trans male and estrogen if it's a trans female. And then the person will only go through puberty once. So I'll explain that. So some of my clients went through puberty as a boy or a girl. And then when they went on cross hormones, they essentially go through puberty a second time, including oily hair, acne and things like that. So you can probably understand that if somebody wanted identified as male and they don't want breasts, but if they've already gone through puberty, then they're binding and things like that, they will need top surgery. If we give Lupron or other puberty blockers, then they don't have the body changes because they don't go through puberty as their sex assigned at birth. And for most of my kids, the mental health issues that come with trying to transition after your body's already changed in a direction that you didn't want it to change, that's when people really, in my experience, struggle. Let me see if I can find it quickly here. If I can't, I will abandon the idea. Let me look here. Oh, here it is. No, that's not it. Okay, here we go. So a couple of years ago, we have created SOGI curriculum, sexual orientation, gender identity. So this caused a big kerfuffle. And people think that learning about sexual orientation and gender has something to do with sexual health, and it really doesn't. In this quote, it says, teaching K-5 students about LGBTQ identities is not about teaching sex ed. These lessons help kids find the words to accurately describe the people they see every day. No one is too young to learn about love and respect for the diverse individuals and families in their own school community. Because I really think that as long as, and this goes for all kids, as long as a child or a teenager has one friend at school, it really makes a huge difference. And then if they can link up with an adult that thinks like they're the best thing since sliced bread, then they're going to thrive. We know that. It takes one committed adult for a child to feel loved and valued. And that could be their teacher, could be their guitar teacher, could be an aunt or uncle or an older cousin or older brother and sister, one person.
And of course, since COVID has been lifted, Victoria Pride was full blast, and we got to interview Britt and Deirdre, who told us about their grandiose plans, and it worked out. It was the best turnout ever, I think, for Victoria Pride.
Oh, I just think we were all so desperate for a party that we just threw in with that one. That was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Next is the big gay dog walk on June 24th. We're going to start marshaling around 6:30. The walk will start at 7, following with a trick and costume contest.
Wow.
So bring out your furry friends, however you interpret that, and bring out all of your costumes and designs and tricks. So there'll be some great prizes to be won for that. It's free. Everybody's welcome. It's at the corner of Cook Street and Dallas Road, where it's always held. And so that's going to be, I'm most excited about that one, to be honest.
Well, I'm excited too, because I just got a furry baby last January, and Scott is getting a new furry baby as well sometime. Do you have him already, Scott?
No, next week.
Okay.
Yeah, he'll be coming.
Well, let's talk about the Sunday, because that is the grand Pride Parade. And I'm going to let Britt take it, because when it comes to the Pride Parade in Victoria, the Victoria Pride Parade, Britt is your person, your go-to person.
So what date do we have on the Grand Parade? The 20...
So that is June 26th at 11 a.m. The Victoria Pride Parade will start. We have a different route this year. So due to the government street closures, a lot of the parades have had to change their route. So we will be assembling off of Tyee and Esquimalt Road over in Esquimalt. We will head over the Johnson Street Bridge, where we hopefully will have our opening ceremony with our Indigenous guests of honor and Two Spirits performers, I believe is what we've had in the past years. And so that's all still coming together. We will then go down Wharf Street, take a right onto Government in front of the Empress, where we will have our amazing comedic hosts, as well as maybe a beautiful queen in her, what do we want to call that, veranda of the Empress. We'll be looking down and emceeing the parade as well. So there'll be a lot of involvement. And then one of the biggest changes that we're trying to include in all of our events is accessibility. So we're looking at in front of the legislature, you take a right onto Belleville, is having accessible seating and a handy dart drop off and accessible seating in that area for folks to enjoy the parade. And then we're going to end. So we're not taking the festival all the way to the parade. We are going to stop at Menzies and Superior. That will be the dispersal lot. And then folks will be able to meander and take their time and get to the park. So those are some of the big changes. We're really excited. We have a different system that we'll speak to later, a social impact model. So for folks that want to be in the parade, if you are a 2S LGBTQIA organization group, your entrance is covered. We want you in the parade. We want to celebrate you. We want to showcase you. And in doing so, bringing the community together.
I will say, it's been really important to take on this role. And part of it is looking at expanding our organizational capacity, and that's what happens a lot of times with Pride is there's a lot of burnout. And so this way that there's more of a person who's hands on deck all the time. And so within this, the new leadership role, I can say that what I'm doing is I'm enabling the Pride Society to become more sustainable and also, better equipped to support what we talked about earlier, what is inclusivity for all. And that's the goal. And the culture is, as I said to people when I first started, is to bring people together in a caring way. And that's sort of the message, because Pride is love, Pride is celebration, Pride is remembering the people who have gone before us, the legacy of those that we've walked on their shoulders. And we know that there's so much work to be done still where we are today, and we got to continue that and remember those who have gone before us and take the path, take it forward.
The clarity of what they're trying to achieve, like what is the purpose of doing Pride? Is it just to celebrate? Is it just to show off? Or is it just to, make a public event and acknowledge our existence and like that? But the way you're talking about how you're doing things this is so clear, and this is so purpose driven, and I just love it. Like the Pride, So thank you for doing this. It's so wonderful. I really look forward to going there. Rain or shine, I will be there. With my stiletto boots.
Intersectional lens. If you walk this world and you feel safe and you can hold your partner's hand, there's someone else who is going through some things and they have they're underserved. And so we really, I guess, what I want to take that point is all of our events, our volunteers, our board members, that lens that we're coming from is how do we help? How do we use our platform to elevate those underserved voices? How do we bring these folks to the table? And how do we share that? And how do we build and grow together as a community? Because if we're all not celebrating, is it a celebration?
And that's exactly where we're at with Queerview Mirror. That is our whole mission, is to bring awareness and to bring, people in front of other people and have those conversations. Absolutely. Visibility is so important no matter who you are. And just by being visible, you can give someone else permission to be visible.
That's beautiful. Thank you for doing what you two do. It's very important work. So thank you. I would like to acknowledge that we, the Victoria Pride Society, organizes and works on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen peoples, and that the land's historical relationships with the Songhees, the Esquimalt, and Masonic peoples have existed since time immemorial. Further to this acknowledgement, the Victoria Pride Society affirms that colonialism and the attitudes and practices that have accompanied it contributes to systemic discrimination and violence against Indigenous people. We, the Victoria Pride Society, recognizes that the land we live, work, and play on has historical relationships that predate our organization's existence. In an effort to show greater respect and solidarity with Indigenous peoples, we acknowledge these territories and their historical relationships as part of a greater call for enabling Indigenous sovereignty and Indigenous spaces. Thank you.
Breaking news! More and more business owners are looking to grow their business using video ads, and they're not wrong. Let me spell it out for you. Visibility, information, demand, entertainment, and overall impact. That's just some of the things a good video ad can do for your business. Book a free consultation today by clicking on the link below, and let's get started. then we discovered the Queer at Sea exhibit all the way down in Victoria, and we had to go ourselves to see it. And it was a wonderful time. We met so many nice people there.
Absolutely. And we got to meet the Lieutenant Governor, which was really amazing. I totally fangirled.
How did you get involved with the Maritime Museum to begin with?
Well, I was friends with one of the board members that said, "Hey, I think you'd be great on our board." So I agree. I was just really excited to be on it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So since when have you been involved with this project?
We for about a year now we've been working on it. Yeah. First in our committee, kind of coming up with ideas of what we wanted to look like, how we wanted to approach this. And we knew that we wanted to hear people's voices, that we weren't the ones telling the story. It was the community telling the story.
Okay. So is this the first time this is happening?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And how did you find the people to share their stories?
Well, some of them came to us like that individual just walking through the door. And others, we connected with like the trans archives at UVic, and we connected with other queer organizations, but mostly we just put it out there. We put it out there on our social media. We did press releases, and lots of media picked it up, and we had great coverage. And so people started to phone, they started to email, and they started to send in emails. And we had set up a little portal where people can either anonymously or not submit things.
Oh, okay.
And so we got a selection of things. Some of them, many people did it non-anonymously, like they provided their name, but some people chose to be anonymous for their own safety or personal.
What is the intention moving forward? What do you hope to accomplish?
Oh, we hope to have that personal connection to people and stories, to have a visibility. Queer and trans individuals on the sea has been around since time immemorial. Their stories being profiled, not so much. So that's what we hope, is that becomes much more visible, and individuals can come and they can reflect on it. And it's the stories range, right? So some of them are beautiful love stories, and some of them are more difficult stories, and some of them are just stories of frustration, of not being able to be yourself, or not being able to combine two of your passions, right? So your sense of self as a queer, or however you identify, individual, with your passion for your career or for the maritime environment, or those two. That's unfair, but in many of the stories there is a beautiful synergy that at some point happened.
Well, here at Queerview Mirror, we believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and representation. And we needed to have some of our trans friends on the show this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think this has been a year for the transgender community to be in focus, be talked about, and be sort of like acknowledged in a sort of like a higher and deeper state, right? And we at Queerview Mirror are happy to do our part, as always.
If you have a great idea for a show, or you think we should feature you, please reach out to us. We're available on Facebook, Instagram, and you can email us through our website too at queerviewmirror.com. We'd love to hear from you.
We're looking forward to another year of Queerview Mirror, where we are going to be coming at ya.